So there it is. Check it out. I got my classic Performance Products power steering box installed. A 500 series. Got my drop spindle kit with the geometric disc brakes installed. Drag link, tie rod ends, everything interconnected. The two ends are now connected. The steering linkage is all there. All in a day's work, but I tell you what, it wasn't without a little bit of tragedy. I busted the living heck out of my finger. But I'm not going to show you that. But I will show you all the rest of the work. So if you're interested in seeing how we got this done this weekend, stay tuned. All right, before we get into it, yes, I did go to urgent care. Notice what they had to do to my ring. Check that out. They had the coolest tool. I wish Harbor Freight sold that ring cutter tool. I'd be buying one. Anyway, good news is no broken bones, just a little bit of swelling, a little bit of hurt pride, busted ring. Got to get that fixed. You know, I won't be doing that. I'll be bringing that to the jeweler. But anyway, all is good. So let's get started. All right, Bill here, restoring Christine, back in the garage. Our Christine, our 56 Bel Air is behind me here. We're working on the front suspension today. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to assembling this car, getting her back on the road. My goal is to have her done in about 5 or 6 months. I've got a ways to go to get there, but I think I'll be able to do it. But today I'm focusing on the front suspension. And Christine originally was manual steering, 3 on a tree. You know, there's not a whole lot of modifications in the front. I'm not going with a rack and pinion or any kind of those upgrades. I'm not changing the A-frames. All that's original. Got the original ball joints, original style ball joints, the original style A-frames, the drag link suspension. All that's like factory original. They're new parts, or they're not new today, but they're you know, they've been replaced. I've got a lot of parts that were not in bad a shape and weren't too old when I parked Christine before the restoration. So I'm going to go back and reuse those. But there's a number of different things we're going to cover today. I've got a classic Performance Products power steering kit that I bought for Christine, and I'll put a link to an episode up above. That's when I did the unboxing. That was back in episode 40 some odd. I don't remember the number, but it's pretty popular. And an unboxing if you want to go see that. And I also have a classic Performance Products drop spindle brake disc brake kit that's on the front. I put this on 10, 12, 15 years ago. So that's been on there a while. But it's still relevant. I'll go over all the components that includes. So let's get into it. So here's my front end. And here's the drop spindle kit I was telling you about. These are from Classic Performance Products. You use your original steering knuckles. They bolt onto the spindle, the drop spindle. It locates, this is a 2-inch drop, I believe. It locates the spindle from here to here, but this is designed to accept the 1978 to, I believe, 1987 or 88 or 89 maybe, GM metric calipers. So these are the calipers. These are very common. These are available on the Malibu, the El Camino, the Monte Carlo, the S10 truck, Blazers. So it's all the same stuff. The Rotor, which has the factory original bolt pattern, which is nice because you can use any of the vintage wheels from way back. You know, Christine has a set of Corvette rallies that have always been on here, and it just accepts the regular GM bolt pattern. So this drop spindle, one of the advantages to it is it has tapered bearings. So if you still have the original drums on your Tri-5, you'll know it has ball bearings, and those ball bearings are prone to failure, and when they do fail, it's pretty catastrophic. So these have the tapered bearings, and when I remove this, I'll show you what that looks like. And then the drag link on the Tri-5 is behind the cross member. So this cross member that where the engine mounts to, the drag link is actually behind that, as opposed to in front where they started to mount them in the late 60s and then into the 70s. So the pitman arm is still attached on this drag link, as is my idler arm, all of my tie rods. I'm going to drop all of this, and then we're gonna paint that with some cast iron gray, and I've got some new tie rod end caps I'm going to put on. So we're going to take all that apart, make sure it's all lubed up, get it all tightened up, put all that back together. And then I've also got this Classic Performance Products 500 series steering box, and I think I'm looking at it from the top down. So top down, this is what's on the top, this is what's below. Down here, 3 bolts that go into the frame on the side right there. And it comes with, this 500 box has a spline shaft. And then here's my factory original box. So my factory original steering box is a lot smaller. This is manual. This is manual steering. And this was already modified. The shaft was modified for my tilt steering column. And my tilt steering column is completely rebuilt. I did 3 episodes. Unfortunately 3, it's a bit too much, but there it is. They'll put a link to that up here. But here's this box, and I'm gonna go ahead and mount this onto the car so I can get the pitman arm tied into my drag link and get all that together so that everything will be linked up. But I won't be able to mount my steering column in just yet because I need to get the firewall in, but I also am missing the rag joint. There is a rag joint kit or rag joint style that Classic Performance Products recommends, and here I need this one here on the left of this diagram. I need that one right there. So I'm going to have to order that in order to be able to mount my steering shaft to this. And you'll notice that the factory manual steering shaft has this much length coming out of it because the box is just that much smaller. So the overall length, I've already kind of like just not dry fit it, but I'll put it up there and I said, you know, is that the right length? Because it looks short. And then I've convinced myself that this is going to work once I get the right rag joint. So that's my misery today. Shouldn't take long, which means it's going to take all day and maybe the whole weekend. Anyway, let's get into it. All right, I got my 2 tie rod assemblies off. I got the drag link off. I left the pitman arm and the idler arm on. I wiped these down with mineral spirits, wire brush, got them as clean as I could, and now I'm about to spray them. I also wiped them down with lacquer thinner, and now I'm about to spray this with this Seymour original cast iron gray finish. This is not a product that I've used before. I'm used to using Duplicolor, and I went to AutoZone and they were out, so they had this, so this is what I'm going to go with. And you know, Christine's not a show car, so all of this is going to end up with road grime and grease and you know, lube. This is going to be a mess over time, so all I want to do is just get this clean, get it uniform. It's going to be underneath the car. Most everybody's not going to see it unless you're climbing around it, and I'm not putting this thing in World of Wheels, so let's just go ahead and get this sprayed. All I'm looking for is just to get this cleaned up. It's going to take a few passes, going to have to rotate these things around, and I'm not bothering masking anything off. I'll just spray around it. I think on the camera it's looking a lot darker than what it really is. So we'll get this sprayed up, and next thing we'll do is we'll work on those rotors. Alright, I got everything painted. It all looks good. Boy, I like this material. This where's that can? I like this a lot. This was at AutoZone. Seymour original gray cast iron finish. This to me was better than the Duplicolor. The Duplicolor didn't have this nice little sheen. This has got a nice satin finish. You can see the color. I touched up my brake calipers, even though I painted those a little while ago. And then I also decided, I busted out a can of silver and I painted the bolts and the nuts that go on the tie rod end. So I've got new energy suspension boots for my tie rods. So we're gonna put those on too. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my attention over here to the rotors. All right, so we're going to pull off the rotor. And I never put my calipers back on since I started assembling Christine. I just had the rotors just kind of loosely on there, and I don't have the calipers on. So I'm going to pull the rotor off. I want to show you the bearings, or show you few things about this, but this is the GM metric rotor. It's got tapered bearings in it, and this is the Classic Performance Products drop spindle. So you can see how much higher this spindle is than where it would have normally mounted from the factory. So this whole thing is just basically a metric spindle. It's made for the Tri-5. It receives the caliper on the back, and then the rotor here. So let's see if we can get on that. And I am going to grease up the bearings, but it's got you know, taper bearing. Yeah, that's normal. That's what's in these things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get some grease, and I'm going to pack these bearings before I put them back in, both on the outside wheel bearing, and then there's an inside wheel bearing on the back side. And this inside wheel bearing is a seal. So my seals are still good. So I'm going to go ahead and repack these, mount these, get them tight, and we'll go ahead and put the calipers on. All right, greased up, lubed up, tightened up. Now we're just trying to get it the last little bit. Get my cotter keyhole lined up. It's rolling easy enough. It's not too tight. And I can get my cotter key in there. Got a brand new pack. Let's see. Make sure. Nope, gotta go a little bit more. There we go. Yep. Bend that up and over. Put my dust cap back on, and we're done. Alright, got the cotter key bent over. Here goes the dust cap. So now we need to get the caliper on. So the caliper is pretty straightforward. Couple of things. The bleeder screw, they're marked left and right, so this one is marked left for the driver's side, but the bleeder screw always goes up, you know, so you want the high point to be where the air is going to be. So bleeder screw goes up top, and then the brake line goes to the bottom. The clipped pad goes in the back to the disc, and then the non-clipped pad floats on this side. Alright, I got the caliper slipped in with the pads, and now I'm going to slip in the pin bolts there, retainers. So what's really funny is these retainer bolts are, you know, these calipers are GM's metric calipers, right? And it takes a 3/8 inch Allen. I used to always say, it's like, you know, back when I suspected that everything was mixed. Some of it was metric and some of it wasn't. Well, here's an example. Some of it's metric and some of it's not. Get these tightened up. And then that'll be that on the caliper and the rotor. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll be able to put the drag link and tie rods back in. And we'll be able to put that 500 series box in. All right, before I mount this box, that's the 500 series power steering. This is the factory manual steering box, and I counted the splines, so I made sure there's 7 individual little grooves, so 7 V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in between a square cut. And the square cuts are all at 90 degrees because it's got 7, 7, 7, and 7 and 4 square cuts, and I made sure it's the same thing on the old box. So when I put this on, my pitman arm ought to slide right over. I also turned and counted the revolutions, and it's about 3 1/4 turns from lock to lock on this 500 box. So I went back a turn and a half, and made sure that this was centered. So right now it's centered. I'm going to go ahead and mount this on the frame, and then we'll grab the drag link next. All right, one thing that's different about this 500 box from the factory box is there's 3 bolts, but the factory bolts were carriage head, and they were a square notch It slips into the frame, and then there's a nut on the back side. Well, this box, the body of it's threaded, so you have these bolts that screw all the way in, and they thread into the body of the box. So it's a little bit different than the factory box. If I can get them all lined up. All right, I got it now. I'll loosen everything up a bit. Got it. I love that impact wrench. This thing's awesome. This 20-volt system from Craftsman. I got the impact, the screw, and the screw gun, and the drill. I love them. All right, I got the drag link slipped onto the pitman arm slipped onto the shaft. Now I just need to tighten the nut on the back, on the bottom. And this is every bit as much as my crescent wrench will go. Little secret, I busted the heck out of my hand earlier. It is throbbing. I did that when I was trying to do the tuning fork. So the hammer bounced up and bit me. I used a few sentence enhancers that won't leave in the video edit. Okay, so this needs to get tightened up, and then I'll be able to get the idler arm tightened up, and then the tie rod ends. All right, hopefully we can get this idler arm connected. It's things are a little twisted and wonky, so I'm not sure how this can work. Yeah, well, that was going in. So this is going in. It's a bit twisted. Yep. Carriage bolt on these. Go through. But did it push it? No. Okay, good. All right. All right. Next, tie rod links. All right, I bought some new tie rod boots from Summit. And this is Energy Suspension tie rod boot end 913101G. So it's got maybe another part number, but anyway. But these are urethane, and mine were rubber and they were torn up. So I decided to get two pair. These are sold by the pair. So we're gonna go ahead and throw the two tie rod assemblies on with these new dust caps. All right, the tie rod assembly has a short tie rod end and a long tie rod end, and the short tie rod end, I believe, goes to the outside. So we're going to put this on drag link. Oops. Front. This. This. It's loose. It's attached. There it is. That looks good. All right, let's get the other one. Finally got the camera at an angle where maybe you can see both sides. Hopefully. Put this one in. All right. Get that one in. Get this side in. Oops. Camera moved. You still see what I'm doing? Yeah, okay, good. Oh man. Whoop whoop. There it is. Tighten them all up. Put Allen keys in them. And that'll be it. So let's take one last look at it. There it is. 500 series box from CPP. It's a power steering box. Factory drag link. Tie rod ends. Idler arm, pitman arms, all factory, and then I got the CPP drop spindle unit with the GM metric calipers, metric brakes. It's all in there, and that's that. I tell you what, that cast iron gray spray paint looks great, and this is as good as it needs to be, 'cause it's all underneath the chassis, it's underneath the motor. Nobody's going to see this, you know. It's going to get road grime, so that's as clean as it needs to be for me, and I think that looks really good. But that's going to do it. I am really struggling with this finger. It is throbbing. I'm going to soak it in some ice water, you know. So we had a good day today, except for a little bit of tragedy. Ow. But anyway, I need to go inside, take some Advil. That's going to do it. I do hope you're liking the videos, and if you are liking the videos, please give them a thumbs up, and if you're enjoying the channel, I'd appreciate a subscription. So until I see you next time, please take care of yourself. Cheers.